They just, whoever would do that just did not think it was offensive in any way, right? It was somehow affirming in some way, or it was somehow identifying with the, with the wild side of life, or somehow, going outside of who you were. You're going to be black. You're gonna be, you're gonna cross the tracks. You're gonna, traffic in vulgarity. You're gonna be, you're gonna be less than. You're gonna be wild. You're gonna be, it's complicated. I'd love to know why a person would think that they should do that. Why did that become a standard? That's a good question, and I hope you will get to when as you work on this project. How did that even become a standard? What will be the reason for that? So this is why, again, I'm doing this project, as you know, everybody knows that I'm working on this Frederick Douglass, but I come back to this because Douglass refused to allow himself to be photographed a certain type of way, because he understood the power of imagery and how in the 19th century, how images were used to define a person. That's really what it's about. An image is used to define. That's why all of you and everybody that we know spends every day taking pictures of themselves, don't they? They're defining their image. They want to be seen with their little Rudolph noses and their Snapchat and all of that stuff, and having fun and all of that. But this depiction of a human being in an image is totally and critically important. Is critically important. Frederick Douglass writes a lot about that, about the ubiquitous nature of photography, and how all of a sudden, because of images, a person as in abject poverty could have a incredible likeness and representation of them that would have cost beyond, would not have even been possible for royalty just years before. So it's complicated.
What do you think it would take for people to recognize Black voice as a serious issue? Do you think there could be maybe some event, maybe some person that steps up and is able to gather all these people and say, this is not okay? Like, do you think something like that, or?
I don't know that there would ever be any one event that would cause people to recognize the seriousness of it. There won't be one event that people will say, oh, Black voice is wrong because of that event. Because image is fluid and constantly changing, you always have to be aware. Each generation has to become aware of why this is important, why this is important. And if you don't know the history of how groups, races, individuals were portrayed in media, then you won't understand why some people are really hypersensitive about that. And it's the same in language as well, right? Because we're talking about image, but we're also talking about language, a certain type of way of speaking, like in hip hop music, right? Let's say that Eminem, I don't even know if Eminem is relevant anymore, but Eminem certainly got notoriety because he was probably as efficient. He understood that form as well as any person who was Black who may have invented that form, right? But he certainly understood that form, and then once again, because he could replicate that form and add his own experience to it as a young white guy, right? Then he's got a broader audience. He's got a much broader audience. So it is never going to be any one event. It's my opinion, there will not be one event that causes people to have that aha moment. They just never will. I think that what people have to understand, if somebody could understand how you could distort who they are, then I think that's how they would get it. This whole thing about dumb blonde, right? This is a perfect example. by categorizing a group of people because of certain attributes that they have, and then you get people to think, well, they all behave that way because one person with those attributes maybe behave that way, right? Then you see how powerful it is. But people won't understand it that way. People will say, well, that's not my experience. I don't feel that way. I don't see color. I don't see a difference. And that is the person that I am most cautious to see difference, because how can you not see the difference, right? Doesn't mean that you have to act on it. Doesn't mean that you have to distort it. Doesn't mean that you have to change policy and make things different because of that image. But very often that's what happens, right? I mean, that is really at the core of it, is that, you know, I'm dealing a lot now with the criminal justice system as a result of this, again, this Douglas Project. And what I see, and you could look at the highest level of government and see that right now, the President of the United States is held to a different standard in the judicial system. Paul Manafort, a different standard in the judicial system. The two boys that vandalized the Frederick Douglass monuments, a different standard they are held to in the legal system than boys who would be black or Latin or something else. We know this, right? This is where the work has to be, because people will say, when people see blackface, when they saw Northam, the governor of Virginia, when he came out with this scandal, you know, these images that he was included among those images, they represented him on the yearbook page. There's a whole system of things that have to happen for that to get in there. He has to make those choices. Then the yearbook staff has to codify those choices and enshrine them in that yearbook, right? So it's a whole system. But that's the least of it. It's when people say, okay, we're not going to tolerate that. We're not going to stand for that. We can't abide those images. We have to do everything we can to eliminate those images. And they're right. But this is where it gets tricky. When do they eliminate the reality of those images when it comes to employment? The dual standard for employment, or the housing. When you go to buy a house and you find out if you're black, you pay more if you can get the house at all. Or in criminal justice, as we've already discussed, or in healthcare, right? That's where the real issue of race lives in America, not in these pictures. These pictures are just the manifestation of it. And people will reject that manifestation, and they should. But the goal is to get them to see that that same idea in pictures is carried out in policy. And that is where the real work needs to be, my opinion.
Last question. You kind of retouched on it. How do you think society can end black boys?
Well, I'll use the words of Robert Nesta Marley. Until the philosophy that holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, we won't see anything happen differently. Bob Marley would say, until the philosophy that holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, there will be war. I'm not saying war. I'm saying nothing will change until we recognize that all people have the same inalienable right to pursue a decent life in this world. So that's my response.
That's all I got.
Good luck trying to edit that.
Well, we have two things. One, I'd like you to react to the definition that we would like to upload to the Urban Dictionary. And I'll have you read it.
Which one?
It's the one in the gray, right? Where it says possible definition.
Loved. Possible definition. Black voice is the extreme exaggeration and mocking of African American vernacular or Black English in a way that downgrades the eloquence of the dialect. Yeah. Who said that?
That's the definition that
Yeah.
we believe
Yeah.
is what Black voice is,
Yeah.
rather than the version that's in the Urban Dictionary.
All right, possible definition. Black voice is the extreme exaggeration and mocking of African American vernacular or Black English in a way that downgrades the eloquence of the dialect. Yeah, yeah. All right. This is definitely a facet of it, but I sure hope that you also get at what it means, because once you do this, then you have exercised control over everything else. Once you do this, then you've opened the door for this. You've opened the door to define who this is. And this could be, you know, they did studies, here you go. They did studies where they said to all of the kids with blue eyes, right? They're going to, that all the kids with blue eyes are bad, right? Are dumb, right? And they had to stop doing the study because all the kids with blue eyes started feeling bad because people were saying they were dumb, right? Or you could do something really simple. You can just get a jar of jelly beans. I did this in a class years ago, jelly beans. And everybody had to take a jelly bean. And then you control it so that there's only certain colors in there. And then you ascribe attributes and behaviors to the people that get the pink jelly beans, or the people that get the red jelly beans, or the yellow jelly beans. And that's how it goes. In the end, all of those jelly beans in that jar are the same, right? Some people don't like the black ones because they're licorice. I love the black ones. But, you know, even that is a point to prove. I mean, that proves a point. So, you know, I'm proud of you guys. Do something with this. Make this great. Win an award. Make this strong so you can send it to SUNY Film Festival for next year and win. Or at very least, do Scholars Day next year.
Right.
All right? You're here next year? Okay, you're here?
I have one more semester.
All right. So you have to come back for Scholars Day. Okay.
Will do.
All right? Okay, anything else? You got me here. Anything else?
No, and we took your time. Thank you.
All right.
And